Hi, thanks for joining me. Welcome back to the channel. So today's video is one I've been looking forward to doing for quite some time, and I keep mentioning it. It just keeps being sort of pipped to the post by other things, but it really is. It's close to sort of my core, my heart. And what I'm going to be talking about today is the Analogue Productions Pablo series, which is a limited edition series of reissues of the Pablo, well, 15 selections from the Pablo catalogue, and I'm going to get back into this, or more detail of this, in a bit. I did mention Pablo, and I mentioned it in my sort of video about sort of record collecting, my path in record collecting, which I'll link to up here. And the thing is, and let me go to my kind of collection of Pablos, which I've got, not vast numbers of them, but this is my sort of selection of Pablos here. And as you can see here, we've got Duke's Big Four, which is one of the ones also listed on this series. You know, you get the gist of these sort of things. Duke Ellington, I mean, you know, doesn't need much introduction. Ella Fitzgerald and Joe Pass. This is another one that is going to be done in this series. Duke Ellington again. Milt Jackson. Count Basie and Oscar Peterson. Duke Ellington. Oh, this is a phenomenal one. And, you know, Oscar Peterson. Count Basie. And then this is... kind of just, you know, a group of all-stars, really, a sort of a gig, but you've got Ella Fitzgerald, Basie, Peterson, Stan Getz, you know, it goes on and on and on. These are, you know, the pioneers, the elder statesmen, the cream of jazz, the roots of jazz, almost. And there's one thing I'd say about the whole Pablo series is it certainly takes me back to before the kind of sort of you know, bebop and you know, sort of 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever jazz. It sort of its roots are before that, and you know, with people like Duke Ellington, for example, who was you know, active, you know, well before that. I've got dozens, or well, maybe a dozen or so. Duke Ellington 78, so I've got quite a large selection of jazz on 78, and there's something about that old kind of big band sort of ragtimey swing kind of feel that's just, it just, like, you know, lifts the heart and energizes the soul, and that's kind of what the core of the Pablo label is, you know, as I read it, so to speak. But anyway, just going to I explained this before in my other video I linked to earlier, but I just want to run through basically the sort of the history of Pablo. So it's all about one man, for starters, a chap called Norman Granz, who was born in 1918, died only not that long ago, in 2001. And Granz was I think a sort of in the 40s, I think he was, or 40s and 50s maybe, he was quite a major figure. I'm not sure of his actual job title or his position, but at Mercury Records. And, you know, he was recording people like Billie Holiday and the like. And then he started his own label, Clef. I've just got a couple of Clef records here, just to sort of give you a feeling here of what we're talking about. I mean, you know, just look at the covers, apart from anything else. They're just achingly beautiful. This is the label for those of you who've not seen one before and are interested, and I would urge you to seek these things out because they are wonderful. Obviously, these are all mono. This was before the stereo era. you can just, I mean, look at this one, this Billie Holiday, photos by Norman Granz. It's produced by Norman Granz. It's, the label is, supervised by Norman Granz. It's his thing. It's his vision, if you like. And they are just phenomenal sounding records of phenomenal music by phenomenal artists. I mean, it is just, these things, to me, there's very little else that's as dynamic and as visceral and there as any of these recordings. But anyway, as I say, so Grant started Clef. Then from Clef, he started another label called Norgran. I don't actually have any Norgran records. Clef, incidentally, were licensed to Columbia in the UK, so if you see UK issues of a lot of these things, they're on the Columbia label. Then in the mid-50s, he started Verve Records, which I'm sure most of you have heard. Well, I'm sure everyone has heard of. And a lot of these things were, they were reissued on the Verve label. So, you'll see these records with two different, versions, same cover, one on, the earlier one on Clef and the later one on Verve, for instance. And then I think it was in 1973, certainly early 70s, he kind of jumped ship and started Pablo. And I think he owned Pablo through to sort of late 80s when he sold it to Fantasy Records, and that sort of, basically the sort of, I think, is it Kraft owned Fantasy, and they're owned by Concord or whatever, I don't know. But it's, by that virtue, these things have been licensed to Analogue Productions. And I think this is quite an inspired move by Chad to release this series, because it's a series of records that I've got no idea how many Pablo records are made. I'd guess a couple of hundred maybe over a sort of 15-year period that they were active, with Granz at the head, certainly. Maybe 100, maybe 200, I don't know. But it's one of very, very, very few labels that I've become aware of over the years, that whenever I see one, which isn't often, but whenever I see one, I just buy it. Absolutely, without fail, because the music is inevitably wonderful. The playing and the recording is it's peerless, it's exceptional, and the overall result is just it's just like a drop of heaven. It really is amazing. They're amazing things to listen to. Really is like a phenomenal experience. And anyone who asks me about them, I just say it's like, you just imagine you're going to a really nice little intimate kind of jazz bar club somewhere with really good acoustics, and you just happen to wander in, and there's your all-time dream musicians. Like I said, you've got Duke Ellington, you've got Oscar Peterson, you've got Count Basie, Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald, Joe Pass, etc., Ray Brown playing. And if there's one thing that's just on every single record on the label that I've heard, they sound like they are absolutely having fun. They sound, there's absolutely no question it's been played live. It's been recorded and played live. There's no kind of multi-tracking and remixing and editing and all that stuff. I'm absolutely sure of that. It is just, what Norman Granz does is he captures the essence of wonderful live music being played by these phenomenal musicians, and he puts them in a situation where they can do that. The recording studios are different from recording to recording. The engineers are different from recording to recording. What's always there is Norman Granz, is the producer or the supervisor or whatever he chooses to call himself on any particular record. So there are 15 in this Analogue Productions series, and this is the first time I've ever subscribed to a series, because I just figured, well, I'm going to want them all, because I would, you know, Analogue Productions or not, I'm going to want them all. I always buy Pablos. I haven't come across one that I don't absolutely love. They are phenomenal. They're just, it's like a drug. You can, you know, it's like sort of popping a pill to take you, transport you to a situation, and that situation will vary from record to record, but it's always about incredible music played freely live with just passion, swing, swagger, boogie, and phenomenally natural dynamics and recording. It's just, they are out there. So I'm just going to run through very quickly, first of all, the first 5 that I've got, because that, I mean, that is, you know, so it's a third of the series, and these are the ones that have been delivered to me first. There are a couple more that have been released, but I kind of save mine up in batches because I'm in the UK. Just to save on postage, I get them shipped over in sort of 2s or 3s rather than, you know, or with other things. But anyway, we've got Duke's Big Four, and I will get back to that because, as I said, that's the only one of these so far where I've got an original. Okay, and I will compare it to the original. But we've got Duke's Big Four, which is Duke Ellington on piano, obviously Joe Pass on guitar, Ray Brown on bass, and Louis Bellson on drums. Okay, so a 4-piece set, and it's, you know, it's wonderful music, but I'll come back to that. Okay, next here we've got, this one's for Blanton, which I will actually take this one out because this is a gatefold. Most of them aren't gatefolds, but this is a gatefold, which is really nice. You've got some beautiful text there. One little, you know, small essay by Norman Granz himself, which is fascinating and wonderful to read. You know, he talks about the, you know, the gestation, if you like, of this session. And for those that don't know, Jimmy Blanton was Duke Ellington's bass player from 39 to 42. So from 1939 to 1942, Jimmy Blanton was Duke Ellington's bass player in Duke Ellington's band or orchestra, whatever you want to call it. Very sadly died of tuberculosis. I think he was only 23. It's such a absolute shame. But so this is just bass, Ray Brown playing the bass, and piano with Duke Ellington, and it's staggering. It's wonderful. It's moving. It's staggering music. Okay, beautiful. The next one we got here is the alternate blues, and there's a whole bunch of musicians here. Obviously, you can see here we've got Clark Terry, Freddie Hubbard, Dizzy Gillespie, Oscar Peterson, but we've also got Ray Brown on bass, Joe Pass on guitar, and Bobby Durham, and I think that's it. But I'll come back to that one too. And then I've got 2 Count Basie Big Band, Farmers Market Barbecue, and 88 Basie Street. Now you'll see this one's in colour. That's actually a really rare thing for Pablos. This is one of the later ones. This was actually recorded in the early 80s, 1983. Still produced by Norman Granz. The engineer was Alan Sides on this, incidentally. But again, you know, this is, apart from 2 of the tracks, this is all big band. And those 2 tracks, I mean, you know, I think you could still kind of call it big band. It's just not quite as big band. But, you know, again, I'll come back to that in a minute. So we've got 5 records so far, and I will just say that they are all utterly wonderful. It's really hard to pick favourites. It'd be like picking favourite children or picking, it's nigh on impossible because they are each absolutely incredible in their own way. But anyway, here we are. I'm just wanting to run through. This is the flyer, so I just want to show you what we've got. So alternate blues, Duke's Big Four. This one's for Blanton, 88 Basie Street and Father's Market Barbecue. I've already mentioned and I have. We've got Basie Jam here, which I haven't got yet. Dizzy Gillespie's Big Four. What's that? Take Love Easy. Ella Fitzgerald and Joe Pass. Ella Fitzgerald and Joe Pass again, which is, I do have that one. Which again, it's like, these things are, I don't know, they just, they don't seem to go for much money, but here we are, this is an original. But here we go, look, Grammy Music Award winner. These things they're phenomenal recordings, absolutely phenomenal. What else have we got coming? Dizzy Gillespie and Count Basie. And that's another thing. I mean, you've got, a great with another great coming together. It's almost like a party of greatness or a club of giants. It is amazing what happened on the Pablo label. Then we've got a celebration of Duke here with Clark Terry, Sarah Vaughan, Zoot Sims. Then we've got a Sarah Vaughan. I mean, another, wonderful vocalist. I mean, you think about the vocalists that Norman Granz worked with. I mean, we already mentioned Billie Holiday. We've got Ella Fitzgerald. We've got Sarah Vaughan. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. It really doesn't. And we've got Art Tatum and Ben Webster. I mean, another Ben Webster. What a iconic, phenomenal saxophonist. And Count Basie and Oscar Peterson. Two of the world's greatest all-time piano players. And then we've got Duke Ellington as well. Same. It just goes on and on and on. And then finally the 15th one, Count Basie. Now, I have to say, I think that I really think once this series is finished, they could revisit it and do some more. I just want to also show you this. This is one of the inserts, the history of Pablo. It'll go into an awful lot more detail of what I've mentioned. So here we go. 1960, Granz sold Verve to MGM. Well done, Granz. He started the company and then he sold it, and 2.5 million. That was an awful lot of money in 1960. The Jazz at the Philharmonic series, that's all down to Jazz, to Granz. The guy is a absolute genius and a massive force in the world of jazz. Absolutely, possibly unparalleled in a way. We kind of talk about Rudy Van Gelder as a bit of a force, but in his own way, I think Norman Granz was even more influential in what he did. But anyway, that's me whittling on about Pablo probably for quite enough, but I could whitter on about it for ages. And in fact, let me show you what you get in one of these records. So we're all going to be familiar with these. Beautiful, wonderful, stiff, solid cover. The familiar QRP inner sleeve. All these are pressed at QRP, of course. Just an amazingly beautiful, wonderful, well-pressed record. This one here, mastered by Kevin Gray, or cut by Kevin Gray, from the original tape, master tape. So, you don't get much better than that. And I will, as I go through, I will mention who's cut which record. But basically, it seems to be mostly Kevin Gray or Doug Sax. So Doug Sax obviously previously cut some of these for previous releases, and they're reusing those metal parts, and where new parts are needing to be made, they're getting Kevin Gray. That's pretty much how I understand it. But anyway, you've got this, again, flyer with really, really nice story about kind of Norman Granz to Pablo, and then another flyer with more Analogue Productions releases. The Atlantic 75 series, which I didn't subscribe to because there's quite a few that I don't want. So that's how I normally am with a series. So it's really, really, really unusual for me to subscribe. But with Pablo, it kind of doesn't matter. You just, and I said this to my wife while we were listening to them, is you could, and I mean, this is God's honest truth. If I was on a desert island situation where I had to just pick 15 records, say, I think I would be very tempted to just take this series, because it just doesn't matter. In Excess Kick, for instance, that's one I've done recently. The Yes album, whatever. All these, these phenomenal, great, amazing records. I mean, they are, but they kind of, the way they, the type of the work of art it is, you have to listen to them in a certain way. You have to give them a certain sort of time. But they require of you a certain energy, and then they give you back a certain energy. The thing about these Pablo recordings, every single one of them, they're quite different. I mean, you've got big band versus, just piano and bass. But they are staggeringly well recorded. They are staggeringly real, and they just energize you. The big band ones, they make you feel like you're, in a 1930s, 1940s movie, but suddenly that black and white fuzzy mono haziness just comes into absolute reality in terms of dynamics and presence and detail and swing and boogie. It's unbelievable. It really, really, really is unbelievable. If your bag is sound quality, you have to buy one of these things just to hear what they're about. So these two are big band, and there's something about big band is just, how many? Let's have a look. How many instruments have we got on here? How many players? Let's look on this one. So piano, Count Basie; guitar, Freddie Green; bass, James Leary. Now, I'll say at this point, the piano is recorded the size, the weight, the volume, the steel of the strings, the woodiness of the body, the cast iron frame, the way the strings are damped, the felt dampers and the hammers, and you can kind of feel everything. It's unbelievably percussive, and especially with the sort of the left hand kind of more, the lower frequency, the bass notes. It's just the body and weight and colour of the piano is unbelievable. The guitars are just very, very, very creamy. It is that sort of very early electric guitar kind of sound. Very, very creamy. The bass, and this is the same on every one of these records. It's just recorded phenomenally. You hear every single bass note. You hear it start and you hear it stop, but it's kind of like there's no EQ, there's no, there's no compression, there's no squashing. It just every note starts and stops in tone and full colour in a soft roundness. Again, depending on the music, but they propel the songs along. The drums, Greg Field. Again, the drums are just recorded phenomenally. And that goes with all of these. Every single instrument is recorded phenomenally. I struggle to think of any instance where anything is recorded better than on these. It really is. It's hard to say, because the whole is so natural. And, you know, like I say, from piano and bass up to a full big band, it's a very, very similar fidelity, and you just, they're there in the room with you. But, you know, going back to this one, like I'm just saying, I'm just going to run through the band here, or the orchestra, whatever you want to call it. So we got Basie on piano, Green on guitar, Leary on bass, Field on drums. Okay, so that's your sort of 4-piece kind of rhythm section, if you like. And then on trumpets, we've got Bob Summers, Sonny Cohen, Dale Carley and Chris Albert. So 4 trumpets, trombones, Bill Hughes, Dennis Wilson, Grover Mitchell and Mitchell Wood. 4 drums by Bones, tenor sax, Kenny Hing and Eric Dixon, baritone sax, Johnny Williams, alto sax, Danny Turner and Bobby Platter. So we got 5 saxophones, 4 trombones, 4 trumpets, and a 4-piece rhythm section. And when the, you know, you'll have someone like do, and then flat as the, you know, the horns brass stab in with a sort of a sort of percussive crescendo, and it is just, it's startlingly dynamic and just unbelievable. And the way these, I mean, this album here, Way Out Basie, St. Louis Blues, Beaver Junction, Lester Leaps In, Blues for the Barbecue, I Don't Know Yet, Ain't That Something, and Jumping at the Woodside. Now, 1 or 2 of these tracks I know from elsewhere, and several of them I just don't know at all. But they are all just phenomenal, and that's what I mean about these records being all, you know, I think there's a very good case to answer that these would be my Desert Island disc records, because if I took, you know, Close to the Edge, Tales from Topographic Oceans, Selling England by the Pound, you know, Led Zeppelin 4, and, you know, Moondance, whatever, I'm sure I'd get bored of them. And I'm sure that I wouldn't get bored of this stuff. And another little thing here that I just find, these are so wonderful. You know, on here, look, we've got Way Out Basie. I mean, St. Louis Blues, look, they give you the running order of the solos. So on St. Louis Blues, the first solo is Mitchell Booty Wood on trombone, followed by Kenny Hing on tenor sax, and then finishing up with Dale Carley on trumpet. And it's just, it is, you know, you could be sat there in a real space back in the, you know, 1982, I think this was really recorded, in the presence of these geniuses. And there's nothing closer. There is nothing closer than being in a real musical event, I think, than listening to a Pablo record. Granz had absolutely mastered his art by this point. He knew what he wanted to do. And he just nails it. It nails it. Absolutely nails it. Now, can I really talk about? I honestly can't tell you which one of these is best. You know, I absolutely can't. If you like big band jazz, and I can only talk about the 5 that we've got so far. If you like big band jazz, frankly, definitely buy both of these Basies. If you don't think you like big band jazz, right? If you think, oh God, no, that's old school, it only like, you know, because most of us hear big band jazz either in old film soundtracks or on 78s or god-awful records that are cut from 78s. You know, there's a lot of, you know, there was a lot of that about, and they sound dire. But if you want to hear sort of, you know, 17, 20 phenomenal musicians, absolutely on it, more on it than probably, you know, more on it than Free are, than Bad, well, more on it than Free are, or more on it than Bad Company are on their debut, you know, more on it than Led Zeppelin. That kind of sharp, absolutely on it. but at that same time, just absolutely free and swinging, and recorded in such a way as, you know, you get, what do we have there? We counted up the trumpets, like 13, 14 odd brass instruments, just absolutely sort of, you know, kind of blatting out together and playing in harmony and unison. And you know, believe me, you have not heard dynamics until you hear that. And as I said, the drums, the piano, the bass, the guitar, everything is recorded as well as you could possibly imagine. So, actually, I hope that there's plenty of you that don't like big band jazz and will go out and buy one of these. And I think you'd just be staggered, frankly. Okay, so that's the two Basies. I can't choose. Like I said, I ordered the whole series because I know that it's just going to be phenomenal music. Duke's Big Four, that's one I've got on as an original. And as I say, I've been buying these things for, like, you know, sometimes as low as £2 or £3. I think the most I've ever paid for an original is about £10. The original of Duke's Big Four. It's open, it's live, it's smooth, it's paced. The guitar's creamy. If anything, the piano gets slightly lost behind the guitar at times, and the drums are perhaps a little bit diffuse at times. Okay? That's a criticism of the original. Okay? Now, the Analogue Productions Pablo series version. This one here is cut by Kevin Gray, and I would just say it's, you know, you put it on and from the word go, it's like rocket ship paced, sort of grooving boogie woogie kind of jazz. The piano is way more vivid. The dynamics of the whole thing is far superior to the original. The sound stage is sharper, kind of more holographically etched. There's more snap to the rhythms. The start and stop of everything is better. And there's a wonderful kind of separation between the performers. I mean, there's only 4 of them here. It's just wonderful. And some of these tracks, you know, you really get the feeling that they're playing on some of these records. They're just having fun and being experimental, and in that respect, it almost sort of, some of them get a bit free jazzy, which I find unpalatable. I kind of can't read it, I can't digest it, so to speak. But on these, everything about all of these, and that's where something where, you know, the new production of them, it just raises them streets ahead of where the already stellar performance of the originals was. They are so easy to listen to, and that doesn't mean they're sort of soft and smooth and rounded and syrupy. They are easy to listen to because they sound so utterly natural, so uncompressed, so alive, so energetic and passionate. And that's really it. I mean, I've written here, this is where this scores over the original. The degree of colour, and all of these there, we talk about colour a lot, but, like, you know, the colour of a big band, for instance, is just, there's nothing to touch it at all. It's stunning. But even on the solo instruments, like I said, the piano on this one's for Blanton. It's incredibly well recorded, and you know, just, I mean, it brings tears to the eyes to just think about it. You've got Duke Ellington and Ray Brown in your room. That's what it sounds like. I mean, you know, Ray Brown's a hero, but you know, Duke Ellington to me is a god. It's just, you know, without Duke Ellington, you know, he is, you know, it's like Louis Armstrong. He's going back another generation before you Miles Davis's and the like. Just it's something else. It is absolutely something else. Just the reality of the recordings and the naturalness of the recordings, and they have been translated onto these modern ones. So this one here, this you know, kind of covered Duke's Big Four. This one's for Blanton. Again, it's this is, it's kind of sparse in a way, but it isn't. It's just bass and piano. But you know, you've got Ray Brown on bass and Duke Ellington on piano. I mean, you know, holy crap! It is so there. I mean, it is amazing. And I will mention side 2. We've got Fragmented Suite for piano and bass, and it's in 4 movements, and it's a side-long piece. And this is one of the bits where I was sort of saying it gets a little bit kind of almost free jazzy. It's kind of abstract, but I mean, you know, isn't music abstract anyway? Jazz abstract, but it is. You know, I mean, it starts off with, you can actually hear their voices and chatting in the studio, which is, again, it's like, you know, a TARDIS into the world of your dreams. But it sort of starts off with this sort of bass solo for the first couple of minutes, and it's just, you know, it's not hard and clipped and punched and forced and pushed. It's just real, utterly real, right there in front of you, between the speakers. And then the piano comes in, and it's the Duke Ellington. I mean, just, it is staggeringly percussive, dynamic, and real, and full of colour. And the timing, and the swing, and the groove is just unbelievable. Again, you just can't say a word against it. The alternate blues. I think this might have been the first one to turn up. This is kind of quite interesting because you've kind of got this same sort of bluesy track, and they do 5 takes of it, I think, is it, or 4 takes. You know, take 1, you've got Dizzy Gillespie and Freddie Hubbard on trumpets, okay, and this is it's beautiful swinging bluesy jazz, okay, really, really, really beautiful. But it is like you are just there and they're playing it live and they're practicing. It's a session in a recording studio. This one here is mastered by Doug Sax, recorded on the March the 10th, 1980 in Hollywood. But as I say, you've got this, you know, 4 different versions of this sort of bluesy number. First take, Dizzy Gillespie and Freddie Hubbard on trumpet. Second take, Dizzy Gillespie, Freddie Hubbard and Clark Terry on trumpet. Third take, again with the same 3. And the fourth take with the same 3. It just flows and is absolutely exquisite. Absolutely exquisite. Unbelievable. Oh, God, I don't know. I think in a way, if I was saying, from these 5, it's very hard to go and pick one. But I would probably say, just because I think, you know, until you've heard a big band, a really, a really, really shit hot, like Count Basie's big band or Duke Ellington's big band, something like that, you know, till you've heard that, it's a musical, spiritual, physical experience that you just, you don't know what you're missing, and you've got to hear it. So I think, you know, you've got to go for one of these. And obviously, as I said, if you're a fan of big band, buy both of them. If you really don't like big band, I would go for one of these, because I think you're going to have a road to Damascus experience. Okay. The other records of those 3, God, it's a tricky one. I think of those 3, I think I would choose this, just because it's, you know, that it's so stripped down. It's so, Ray Brown and Duke Ellington have got together, you know, at the suggestion of Norman Granz, to revisit and explore and sort of improvise around, you know, the stuff that Duke Ellington did with Jimmy Blanton back in the, 39 to 42, back in those days. It's incredible. It's incredibly moving. It's beautiful. It's and I said it's almost kind of abstracty. Gets almost sort of free jazz at points, but just with bass and piano, and it is so percussive. It's so colourful. It's so vivid. But the same, sound quality, they're all the same, basically. So there we have it, really. That's my first sort of dip into this phenomenal series. I've got 5 records here. I'm not going to be able to stand them all up, am I? 5 phenomenal records. 10 more to come, and honestly, I hope these are proving a success for Analogue Productions. And another thing I've got to say is, I talked about these and how staggering the value is. These things are $40. Now, $40 is, I don't know, about £32 UK, something like that. Of course, you've got to pay VAT and shipping on them and all the rest of it, and that's why I say I sort of strategically get them in batches to sort of minimise that. But I've bought sort of recent reissues of records for 31, 32, 33, 34 pounds, same money as these basically, and they are shocking, awful, muddy, stodgy, pathetic excuses for records that record companies are just churning out because young people are wanting to buy them and they're playing them on their Crosleys, and they don't know, they don't know any better. They're being ripped off and sold rubbish, whereas for the same money you can get something which I think any one of these records would literally bring tears to your eyes. With the staggering sound quality, but in the way of just utter reality, and then utter reality of what? Utter reality of Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, Count Basie, etc. They are absolutely, utterly wonderful. I can't wait for my next batch. And I hope that was of interest. I hope those of you who haven't heard of Pablo or haven't got any of these on order will order one. And if you maybe if you're in the UK and you don't want to spend $40, because by the time you put the postage and the VAT and everything else on it, it might cost you sort of £50 or £60. Depends how you play the buying in batches and how strategic you are in that respect. But go and hunt down your local record store, because these things, I say, there's some phenomenal records, and as I say, that Up in Duke's Workshop, wherever that one is, that's beautiful. But here, look, Count Basie and Oscar Peterson on the same record. Just what the heck? Up in Duke's Workshop, what the heck? It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Anyway, I think I've said enough about all these magnificent records, and I'll just say thank you all very much for watching. If you'd enjoyed this video, please do click the like button. That really kind of helps me penetrate the YouTube algorithms. And if you like what I'm doing, please subscribe to the channel, because once again, that really helps too. And I'll say bye for now. See you next time. Thank you. Bye.